Here we go. Amazing. We are done. We are here. Let's check everything's okay. Perfect. Welcome, everybody. For those of you that are new to my world, my name's Allera Dawn, and I'm known as the modern day High Priestess. I am an international life and business coach, a workplace wellness expert, podcast host, and public speaker. And I'm super excited to start these Ask Allera sessions. And I've had some amazing feedback and lots of people viewing and catching up on the replay. So this is being streamed across YouTube, LinkedIn, and my Facebook Pure Light 1111 business page. So wherever you are, pop some comments, show some love. And when I share things, the more that you connect in, I can connect into the morphogenic field, meaning I can start to read the group collective field. And that's often what I'm channeling and bringing information through so that it actually is speaking to you. And yeah, it's powerful stuff. It's powerful stuff. So let's get started. So this week's session, which is really an interesting time for me to do this and for this question to come through, given that we have this potent 14th of February tomorrow, the Valentine's Day, which sadly is something that stirs up so much in people. And whether you are bought into the commercial aspect of it, the obligation of it, it often brings about a time where we feel we need to perhaps reflect on not only our current situation, perhaps it highlights a deep desire and a need within us to create a relationship or attract in a soulmate, or perhaps it even highlights the loneliness that you feel, perhaps even within a relationship. So with all of these experiences, be curious about what these main dates bring up for you. And that's the same with birthdays, Christmases, and consider, is this reflecting the relationship I'm in currently, or the situation that I'm in? Perhaps I'm desiring something different. Or is this actually a trigger from the past? Maybe an old wound that's triggered by, Valentine's Day, a day where you maybe experienced amazing, date or something with somebody in the past. However, that relationship's maybe not here now, and it brings about some sadness and old memories. And I want you to understand that we hold a lot of trapped emotions from the past, and these outside linear timeline events can actually trigger the unhealed wound or the trapped emotion. Trapped emotion is just trapped energy. It was energy in motion. It has been locked, and it often has different traumas, stories, all sorts of pieces that get locked in the energetic field. It can affect the soul. We already know that when we create certain stories and we get aligned to certain things, we have neuroplasticity. Our brain actually expects the disappointment or expects something to go wrong. And our nervous system will be wired for that as well. So there's many different parts of you as a multidimensional being that are contributing to the sensations, therefore the thoughts, and sometimes even the perspectives. So they're not always the highest truth. So in today's session, we are looking at a question that came in from somebody to the Ask Allera mail group. So again, for next week's session, if you want to send in a question, you just need to mail askallera@mail.com. And for those that will be of greatest service for me to answer, I'll be bringing those through. So the question that came in was, essentially, I left a relationship many years ago, but I still can't seem to let go of this person. I still can't seem to move on fully. I've had short relationships, but I'm being pulled back. This person's in my dreams. I'm thinking about them a lot. Yeah, I haven't seen them in years, and I'm not in contact with them. So I want to go into this deeper. So when we recognize that at a soul level, everybody that comes into your life serves a purpose, and every dynamic in this physical 3D reality is playing through what's called the drama triangle. So the persecutor, the victim, the rescuer. And it means that that is a 3D construct. So if we are playing those dances in certain roles, it is often to clear karma. So each one of us will play our certain character in the pantomime play in order for a realization, a resolution, and often a clearance of soul lessons, contracts, or some agreement that's been made between the two of you. So when we recognize that everything is, the soul adventure of growth, of expansion, and often, well, through the 3D construct, we are learning through contrast. So if everything was all, smooth, plain sailing, we would not really have the contrast to learn, grow, decide we want something different, and make different choices from that. Now, what we have to recognize is that we are not just creating from this one timeline. Therefore, yes, you chose to incarnate with your family matrix, with those that you've been incarnated with, generally because you have a huge amount of outstanding karma with them, meaning outstanding cause and effect. And it would have been for the highest soul growth for you to come in and break the generational, often trauma and patterns and cycles and curses and all the other pieces for the greatest good of you, and clearing that back through the ancestral lines like 10 generations back, breaking the cycles. This epoch of time that we are in is for us to break the cycle and not remain creating from the past. We are breaking free from the old way, which was contractual agreement, karmic entanglement, where we literally have been trapped, coming back almost blind, back into these cycles, these relationships again, not being able to complete them, not being able to energetically free ourselves, not being able to alchemize past the situation. So we end up through many different lifetimes repeating these things. So it creates like a timeline bleed, meaning what has happened in this lifetime is a culmination of events from previous lifetimes, and also what you've inherited through your ancestral line to come in to essentially, if you are in my spaces, you are the one that's breaking, you're the way shower, you're often the black sheep, the scapegoat, the one that saw the discord and decided to go a different way. And often we do that initially through our feet, we move, we leave, we break ties and we choose something different. But what we haven't been taught that we need to recognize, which is deeply important, is the energetics and the soul level. And this goes for every single relationship. And I want to reframe something that is not accurate that's in the collective field, which is soulmates. Now, what we've been told through, whether it's Disney or all the, Mills and Boom, for many years, it's like almost playing through the lens of archetypes, which keep us limited to a certain expression, and believing that there is only one person for us, or there is this fantasy land of how a dynamic should be. That actually keeps us locked and limited, because it actually is a frequency of scarcity. So I want you to recognize that there is a soulmate, an equal and opposite version for you at whichever frequency you are at, meaning your beliefs, the trauma, the woundings, the habits you have, the karma you have creates your frequency, your vibrational frequency, your level of consciousness as well. When we start to do the soul work, the alchemical work, we start to close out old timelines. We start to go into understanding who we are as a soul. And that often means renegotiating some of the agreements, renegotiating what we're here to do and clearing the path. You will naturally attract different people, different soulmates, whether they are romantic, whether they are for whatever purpose, at different levels of your own evolution. And they come in because there is something that both of you often can mirror or see something or activate something within each other. So if we can take that perspective that you are never truly a victim of your circumstances, but it's about your level of awareness, which allows you to then be like questioning things, checking out red flags, challenging things, and getting to the point of realizing that actually we've been creating in a timeline, which has meant that we have been clearing our karma through relationships. But actually we have the ability to go, wait a minute, I can feel I'm getting drawn into this dynamic again. I would rather find out what the lesson is, what the karma is, clear that up, and clear the contractual agreement I have with this other soul to play out this pantomime role of victim or rescuer or whatever else it is I'm having to play out. And I learn proactively by empowering myself and connecting with my soul, connecting with my teams, connecting through the Akashic records to determine which timeline I'm taking, which is not to keep on repeating the past. Now, that is not something you just switch on. That's something that I work with my clients around. I also have a program, which was the first one I brought out, which you can still purchase online, which is the online Twin Flame Healing Program, which is not just for those going through that journey. It's for those on the awakening journey that want to clear the beliefs, the trauma, start doing some of the deeper work to elevate their frequency and consciousness so they are aligned to different people, circumstances, expanded money, and new soulmate relationships. So when we understand everything is energetic, so when we go into the unconscious, we are talking about soul and energetics. When we're talking about subconscious, we're actually beginning to look at the consciousness within the body. So I can tune in and channel and talk to somebody's organs like the womb or the heart. They all have their own voice and consciousness. And in some of the shamanic paths, that would be something that you learn, is to connect with the nervous system and the brainstem and be able to communicate, because ultimately when we're working cohesively, we're in alignment with ourselves. So all of these relationships are showing you something in relation to yourself. If we slow down and try to identify what those things are, we then begin to have a higher perspective and are less entangled in trying to keep on going back into the same patterns with people. So when we begin to realize that there's a lot of energetics going on here, there's a lot of things like soul contracts and obligations and vows that are literally for eternity, meaning if you had a wedding vow in another timeline, that hasn't disappeared. We will often attract partners into our lives now that we've had other timelines with them. We have marriage vows, we have contracts, we have outstanding karma with them. And often the relationships that are the most passionate, the most charged, that magnetic, it makes no sense, I'm losing my balance, and you pull yourself into that type of karmic relationship is the biggest red flag. Why? Because that level of charge shows you that there has been something energetically that is incredibly potent, which is generally trauma through murder, rape, something horrific that is pulling you back together to somehow work through it together. They are generally the most toxic 3D relationships you can have. They bring so much growth, but they are literally going to call you not to actually have this happy, picket fence relationship with someone. They are going to call you into deeper levels of self-worth, your value, to pull back your power, to learn your voice, to have sexual and physical boundaries. They literally bring the most level of soul growth, but will often bring the biggest level of confusion, additional abuse and trauma, and all the other stuff, until you choose that you are worthy of something different and you decide to find a new way. Now, when we have something that is as charged as trauma, there is an energetic effect of what happens with trauma as well. So meaning, depending on the invasiveness of it, there will be some level of fragmentation, meaning that we leave parts of ourselves in other timelines and events after traumatic events. And that is literally multidimensional, meaning it continues to happen whilst we are just continuing on our day-to-day lives. And this will mean that certain people, for example, when I work with clients, one of the first things that I'm doing is we're doing like an energetic realignment. And that involves clearing the energy of any abusers, any kind of entanglements in that way that are still being held within the organs, especially like the womb or the sexual organs, and the energy field. Because when there is that level of entanglement, we actually have an exchange of energy. We have soul fragments that will be like traumatized aspects of self that get frozen in time, holding a consciousness and a charge, and that is within our energy field. So part of what we're doing of embodying more of our higher self and soul into physical form is to actually be able to call back these parts of selves that we have fragmented through trauma, or that we have given away, or that also have been entangled through our sexual relationships, which comes on to really understanding, if we have these massive entanglements with people, isn't it quite hard why we can't move on from them? If we haven't closed things out at soul and energetic level, you are still connected through different timelines. So this is where it gets really like the empowered woman, and the women that are in my groups, they will go in to their Akashic records and they will check Who is this business partner that's coming into my experience? How do I know them? What is this? What's the intention of them coming into my experience? Because it might well be that you have betrayal consciousness between you, in which case there will be something that will automatically play out between the two of you. And it is unconscious. And this stuff plays in very, very kind of bizarre ways, to the degree that it is so subtle, and then it will just suddenly play out. And I remember actually dating someone many years ago, and there was a contract that I was to cheat on him, which then would have created this awakening, i.e. he'd gone into dark night of the soul, which is the start of this spiritual awakening, the start of destabilization, of removing the egoic sort of structures, and to search for himself. However, that's not in alignment with myself. That isn't in integrity with who I am. And I wasn't willing to carry out that soul contract, even though it was agreed with him at soul level, for me to lower my frequency to go and do something that would harm another. That would have been to keep in that karmic cycle. So I went in and I cleared all of that. And in doing so, not only did our relationship suddenly get better because there was not this outstanding friction between the two of us, it actually gave me a different perspective on actually how we can be much more empowered around the choices and the relationships we have, and not accept things on surface value. And it's also something I do with collaborations, business partnerships, and I work with clients doing the same, because ultimately every relationship is going to bring in another person, another soul. So it doesn't matter whether you are learning through a romantic relationship or you are learning through your business. If there is unfinished business, or there is something the two of you will play out, it shows up in business as well. And I see this with co-founders. I see this when people fall out. I see this when they get triggered by each other. I see this when this stuff, it's old stuff that comes out and plays off. It's literally most of the workplace dynamics is what is playing out, which is karmic stuff amongst us. It's our triggers being highlighted by other people's frequencies. So when we're talking about trying to get over somebody, we do also need to look at understanding the power of sexual energy. So sexual energy is the most potent and creative life form there is. And we have been suppressed and controlled through religious programming and many, many different cycles of evolution where we've been told to disconnect from it in some way. Now, it is also the most potent and powerful frequency there is. It can create lives. It is also very powerful for manifestation. So when we are having sex with somebody, we all have our own energy bodies, but we are merging our energy body with somebody else. The energy centers will then start to connect. Now, when we are having sex with somebody, we all have our emotional bodies. Our emotional bodies hold thought forms, different, we'll call it abuse energies, consciousness, all sorts of stuff in our fields. So it means that when you are sleeping with somebody, you are merging, you are taking on some of their consciousness, but you are also sharing and merging your soul with somebody else. There is a saying, don't sleep with someone unless you would want to be them, because you take on some of that consciousness. Now, when I first set my business up back in 2017, I was working with a number of CEOs, male CEOs that had sex addiction and cocaine addiction. And one of the big patterns was they were having mental health issues, namely because of the level of partners they were sleeping with. They were taking on so much of these other people's stuff. And obviously that then has the culmination of whatever else those people were up to. And it was literally destabilizing them. And it was actually adding to the, we'll call it lack of willpower, but also the addiction patterns, because they literally had less of their own consciousness within them, and so much fragmentation and other people's energy that you literally lose your own path. You've allowed something else to drive the car. There is something else animating you. You are not fully anchored in, and your energy field is not strong. So it's not to say that, you know, there's anything wrong at all with sex, but it's about conscious sex. It's about understanding sexual energy. So we naturally, in our relationships, there is an energy exchange through sex. So that means that when we then split up, you're still carrying some of their energy 20 years down the line. You're actually still carrying some of their energy lifetimes, because it stays within the emotional bodies, vice versa. So if there's been something that, for example, you have a soulmate contract, and you've come together to learn something. Soulmate contracts do not mean the lovey-dovey stuff. There is something that the two of you have come together to evolve that either gets completed or it literally kind of stays outstanding. One person kind of rescinds it and moves on. So what happens is the person that still has the contract in place will often have a level of unrequited love. They are longing, pining, and that can go through lifetimes as well, feeling that, you know, love is separate from me. It's never available for me. This longing of there's only the one, obsession, putting their lives on hold for this person. And if you've had a divorce from someone, it can actually mean that because your ex-husband's energy is still in your energy field, in your womb, because that is felt on a very subconscious level, people think you're taken. So it makes it much harder for you to go back out in the dating world or attract in a new partner, because you're still holding on to the frequencies of somebody else. And as we talked in the beginning, you are attracting from who you are, what you are at this time. And if that is a culmination of your old relationship that is still in your field, even if you've done therapy, for example, even if you may have had some short-term relationships, it doesn't mean it's disappeared. So we've got to also remember there is some really outdated, we'll call it consciousness and agreements, where women have been property. So often, if there was any of that energy in this or other lifetimes, it's almost like your body was property to your partner. So what tends to happen is that we end up kind of not able to move forwards because our ex still, on some very soul level, believes that we are, you know, indebted or we are owned by them. So there's many pieces here, and this can make it really confusing because ultimately you are receiving information from your body and your energy field, which is then coming up in your thoughts, your dreams, your subconscious is running the show, well, your unconscious is running the show. But these pieces may be forming stories for you that feel very real because it is animated through you. And this is all because it is energy, and energy is consciousness. So when we're looking at someone not being able to move forwards, one of the first things I do is what's called an energetic divorce. And I do this with any of my clients that have experienced abuse, any type of abuse, actually. Even verbal abuse will stay as a thought form and an imprint in the energy field, which is why we have to be really careful in how we're actually talking to our children, because they literally get imprinted with this kind of like frequency and statements that hold an energetic form. Therefore, they start to attract out, you know, as they grow up, other relationships and situations that mirror that. So this is where we get to recognize that our power comes in understanding that you are not to stay entangled to your exes. You will often, when you do an energetic divorce, and this is not cord cutting. I see a lot of stuff in the mainstream that talks about cord cutting. To give you an indication, every time you are thinking about somebody, you are creating an energetic charge that connects in with their energy field. So what often happens is people think that they are cutting the cords, which is to remove the energetic cords connected to like the sacral chakra or the different chakras. But they don't forget the fact that most people are hooked in through the back, over the back of the ears, in the back of the head, because they're controlling people's thoughts, their influence. They are not just in the chakral area, you know, in the different chakras. So we've got to understand that if the soul contracts that brought you together in the first place are not completed, and we haven't closed the lessons out, and we still have unresolved energy, they're going to stay very animated in your thoughts. And it's going to influence your timelines that you're on, because you are essentially still being held back to a degree, even though it might look like you've moved on in the physical. Energetically, that's why you're not able to attract a new partner at a new set point, because you just haven't cleared and disconnected from the last relationship. So when we do the energetic divorce, we are working with the different energy architectures of your field, and depending on what you've been up to at soul level, perhaps there's even past life stuff that needs to be cleared in order for you to even complete the energetic divorce. This is something I do, which is called like a form of psychic surgery. And I will be able to go in and pull up the whole field and see what brought you in, why you've created this experience. Because if you have no conscious awareness of why you've attracted that in, then you become the victim of your circumstances. But actually, you need to understand at soul level that we learn from all of this. And the next piece, once we've cleared the energy field and done the energetic divorce, which interestingly, to give you an example of how powerful this is, you will know if there is an entanglement there, because generally what happens is they will suddenly reach out to you. Why? Because they've been pulling and feeding on your energy. And the minute that this energetic divorce is done, you've pulled your energy back. You have cleared them out of your energy field. You have called back your parts of soul fragments, and they are anchored back in you, your essence. So you feel strong, you feel grounded, because you have more of you in your vessel. Therefore, you can think from, connecting back into soul, back into your purpose, into your direction, not being influenced by somebody else's agenda. They will generally pop up, not because they are missing you and they love you and all the rest of it. They pop up because basically they can feel that you have pulled your energy back from them, and they're popping up because the minute you answer that call, the minute you answer that text, the minute you re-engage, you are allowing an energetic connection to be formed again. So in the same way that some people try and do cord cutting and then they're just sat obsessed by somebody constantly, all you're doing is just cutting something and then generally reconnecting again. This is how powerful we are. We are energetic beings. Our thoughts have power, and our thoughts are, the level of telepathy that happens when you have, a very close soul connection with someone, because you are so energetically connected. It can feel like the two of you are, synchronizing, and that can either be in harmony or not. So when we begin to understand the energetics of these things, we've got a question there about somebody, if they're dead. That's a bit different, but yes, we can still have energetic connections to spirits where we were married to them and things like that. That is slightly different, completely different from this perspective, though that is something that plays out. If you are getting dreams of your exes coming in and having weird, should we say romantic, intimate experiences with you, it means that they are plugging into your energy field on the astral plane. So it's not just a dream, it is them or an entity that is posing as them, trying to connect back into your energy field, which is generally sexual energy. It's back into the root and the sacral and the solar plexus, because it's about power over somebody. So that's like the key energy areas that tend to get plugged into. And if we don't know what that means, we will unknowingly be getting drained either on the astral plane, which is what we connect into through meditation or when we're sleeping, or we will be having physical connection with somebody in our day-to-day. And we can generally begin to, the more we get used to energy clearing, energy hygiene, having stronger energetic boundaries, and also the energetic architecture work done, especially if you've had some level of invasive abuse, you will not hold your energy boundaries very well. And there's often tears and big holes and stuff in the field, which means that you're kind of more susceptible to attract people that come in and are very easily able to access your energy field, whether to overpower or to take. It's a siphoning. So there's been a lot that's happened through history, in particular from ancient Egyptian times, when we were in the temples, when we were learning about sacred sexuality, where we were learning about the practices in truth around these things. There was a distortion, a sexual coding distortion that was creating a level of siphoning, which was not the pureness of what our energy exchange was to be. And that is what has essentially manifested in the dysfunction that we have in our kind of 3D reality at this time. Remembering how powerful our sexual energy is, and remembering that whatever we focus on, so that's watching something, including porn or anything like that, whatever we focus on, we are not only giving our attention, we are giving our energy to it. We are creating an energy exchange. So this is where we start to really recognize the power in pulling our energy back, doing the energetic divorces. And at that point, you will often find the massive charge or the stories that you have been pulling in about the almost obsession sometimes stops. I worked with a woman that had literally had her life on hold for about 17 years after a divorce in her 20s, and not being able to move on, no partners, no nothing, actual obsession. And she was energetically still very strongly charged and connected to this person. And literally in one session, fully disconnected. And she was like, as though somebody had flicked a switch, completely different energetics, felt very different. And it was at that point we then started to go in and do the work that removes the quantum entanglement. And that is really about going in and doing the soul work, the forgiveness at soul level. A lot of people try and forgive and they do it with their heads, but we're talking about energetic connections here. We're talking about knowing that the two of you have created some agreement at soul level to come in and do certain things. However, not everything goes to plan. Not everything is fair. You know, there's sometimes abuse of power. There's sometimes all sorts of things that go on. That forgiveness, if you can reframe it as quantum entanglement, I'm disentangling myself from the quantum entanglement, the power this person has over me, because they are still connected to me. The longer I hold the grudge, the longer I hold the resentment, the longer I hold on to this, it doesn't protect me and it doesn't serve me. So if we can recognize that forgiveness is part of the disentanglement. So if you know that, you know, I feel it deeply in my heart, you know, it's like it's being blocked, because often that's where you're connecting in with other people. So if you do the forgiveness work at soul level and you have the energetic clearing with it, you are giving them the healing and the clearing at higher self and soul above, which then translates into the energetics all being disconnected. And you will often find this deep level of love and peace and be able to really open your heart and feel much more in your body because you're safe to. When we often have this deep level of entanglement where there's been pain, betrayal, or whatever else is going on, it stops us from opening our heart more, which means we're not felt. It means that people can't connect with us. It means that we often can't call in new relationships. And it means that we are tethered to what has hurt us or the past. And when we can look at the soul's highest perspective, we begin to then recognize that there is always another level to this, another story, which frees us from the 3D mind, monkey mind stories, which keep us in the drama triangle. So as long as we are casting ourselves in the pantomime of the drama triangle, we are only aligning ourselves to our 3D consciousness. We have to zoom out and take the soul's highest perspective to begin to realize that, yes, there are going to be human expressions of betrayal and these things playing out. But if I know that there is a higher, deeper reason and I can take myself to that perspective sooner, do the clearing work so that I'm not holding the charge, start to allow the emotional, like my nervous system to set again, start to recognize that the emotions can be processed very, very quickly. And it will take a little bit of time, obviously, but knowing that the more that you can practice these things, the more that you are able to bounce back, meaning that you are not spending years and years hanging on. You're not even spending weeks at times. It doesn't mean that you suddenly jump into another relationship, but you get to a place where you are holding your back to a place of equilibrium and homeostasis so that you can start to function more as you and allow that to evolve, allow that new set point to evolve. Because as long as we are entangled with the past, whether it's people or traumatic events, places, we are still not in full alignment or having full access to all that we are, and recognizing that we are manifesting through the consciousness that we are holding. So it makes sense that we use these practices when we close out relationships. It makes sense that we start to be the soul architect, to start to look at, well, who is this new business partner that's coming in? Who is it I'm about to sign a contract with to, you know, create this new platform or create this startup? And start to recognize that, do I want to experience this clearance of karma through this collaboration? Or would I rather shift my vibration by healing these pieces and make a very strong declaration at soul level, which is where we're operating from anyway, to start to calibrate and call in the aligned relationships, which are actually, and this is business relationships and partnerships, that are actually aligned at the soul's highest timeline, which means that you are literally aligning to purpose. Meaning, when I'm aligned to my purpose, I'm actually going to bring in the business partners where both our purposes are for something similar and we collaborate and create and expand. Or am I just going to keep on with this cycle of like nonsense? And we are choosing our own adventure. And this is a different way of operating. It is a different way of expanding. It's a different way of understanding actually how powerful we are. And it's something that's been hidden from us. And this is something that needs to be activated and reborn within every single one of us. It needs to be stuff that we start to teach our children. It needs to be stuff that we bring into conscious conception, because all of this stuff is about soul. So when we also consider fertility is really important with energetic divorces. Why? Because if you are holding on to the energy of every sexual partner that you've had, that will energetically influence your ability to conceive. It can also mean that because we know that there is a level of potential entanglement, ownership, maybe even frequencies of abuse, maybe frequencies of sadness, disappointment, that's holding your frequency down. The new souls, the new children that are being born onto this planet, do not want to inherit the karma that your ancestral lineage have had. They do not want to have to come in and start to break the generational curses. They don't want to come in to, be in families where they are literally working their way through all of the dross. So doing an energetic divorce is actually something that is really powerful as a prerequisite to the womb healing. And the womb healing will be healing through your feminine lineage. And this is where we start to look at also those steps can be taken when you leave a relationship to start to connect back into your feminine body, to start to actually work with the different channels. So most people are trying to manifest just through the 3D. Yeah, but you've got to remember that there's been a lot that's happened in your energy field and also from the feminine energy field that needs to be healed, because we have experienced lifetimes of pretty much being collateral objects, only used for our wombs. We're only good enough as a wife that can bear children. All of that stuff, all of the epigenetics and the imprinting and the stuff that you carry ancestrally is in the womb. And this is why when we go deeper into this stuff and we begin to also connect back into, we'll call it like the mysteries, the mystery schools, the womb lineages, women start to really do some of the deep feminine awakening that calls their power back from the influence of patriarchy. And when we start to embody that, we start to clear out the old energies. We are naturally radiating a completely different frequency, because this literally lights up your whole energy field. And a woman that has done this kind of work is deeply magnetic. She is deeply in her body. We have to recognize that that takes a bit of time, because if we're fragmented and quite, all over the place, we need to reset that before doing that level of work. But that's really about feminine embodiment, calling that energy back in, being able to connect with ourselves more, connect with our sexual energy, and also not give it away, not allow energy bleeds, but not allow it to be taken either, because we know that this is what creates entanglements. And it doesn't mean that you actually need to sleep with somebody in order for them to be able to hook into your energy field. I've had experiences before where I've maybe met somebody and it's been quite flirty, and I can pick up on an intention and sexual intention with that person, and I can feel them trying to connect in with my energy field, and I'm that sensitive. Often you'll feel it in the solar plexus, which will sometimes feel like a tugging and maybe even a heartbeat. It might actually bring up a feeling of sickness or anxiety, because there is a control energy there. And because there's obviously an energy transfer, whatever frequencies they have may not be in alignment for me, and I will start to feel it, which means I can clear and disconnect them straight away. You may find that they start connecting in with the sacral chakra as well. So again, this is about being conscious of our energy field, our energy boundaries, because this is the thing, what you're doing with your energy field is going to reflect what's going on in the unconscious. Even if you may be living like a nun, if what's going on in your unconscious because of past events and situations, your energy field will be open or torn or have holes or not very strong boundaries, because it's reflecting that. And until we bring this into cohesion, we find the discord, meaning you might still keep on, I've changed my life, I've changed all these patterns, I've been for therapy, I know all this stuff, but why am I still attracting this same stuff in? It's because the energetics and the soul stuff has not brought the rest of the field into alignment. So you are still literally just radiating out the frequencies, and you can only attract like for like back in. So it's almost like the same, they hold the other side of the coin for you. So if I was to consider, you know, somebody that is wanting to have a fresh start or call in a soulmate, I would do the energetic divorce. I would then be doing the forgiveness piece, like teaching them how to do that at soul level, which is ongoing as well. And that is part of the how we ascend out of 3D through 4D into 5D, meaning soul consciousness. Because if you can't master that ability to fully disentangle, like quantumly, the forgiveness, you are not going to be able to reach enough of your soul consciousness, because you're going to be stuck in the stickiness of the drama triangle, which is all blame and victim and all of that, which isn't your truth. It's just a level of consciousness, like a lens of consciousness that sadly, you know, most of the collective are locked into, but that's not the only consciousness. So when we begin to realize there is another thing that we can access, there is another consciousness we can access that actually brings us truer to ourselves, we realize that there is more power there, but also there's a level of neutrality. So when we have neutrality, we actually drop out. We're no longer in resonance with a lot of the chaos and the nonsense that goes on. So we stop attracting it because we're no longer energetically aligned for it. So after a relationship, we do need to go in and do a bit of the energetic post-mortem. We need to understand our behaviors. We need to understand, you know, where on a very unconscious level did I attract that in, and what part of me was still trying to perhaps create a situation where I could right a wrong from the past, or try to have an unmet need fulfilled. Where was I not speaking my truth? Where did I not activate and own my sacred yes and sacred no? Did I speak up my needs in all situations? Am I confident in using my voice? So this is really important for women as well. So when we're doing the deep work, this alchemy work for women, we have to understand that the power of our voice has been locked up. It's been locked up pretty much. So there will be vocal work to do. There will be work around really owning and finding your powerful, potent frequency and voice, because literally your soul comes through your voice. Every person has an absolute unique harmonic of their voice. So also, if you look at a scan of the throat, it looks like the cervix. The throat and the cervix and the womb area and all the female reproductive area are connected. So when we start to do womb work, we are also unplugging the throat. We are also working with the heart, and we are also healing the womb and our connection. So this connection right the way through. That's not something you do overnight. It's not something you do in a 1 hour rite of the womb ceremony. It's like, that is like, honestly, a grain of sand. When we go into the womb work, you are going deep into the dark feminine of the ancestral healing. And actually, we all have ancestral healing to do here. We do not need to be going into the depths of taking on all their karma. Actually, a big piece of it is actually saying no. A big piece of it is actually understanding you're clearing on behalf of the collective, clearing stuff that isn't yours, or you are taking on stuff that, you know, there's been rape trauma, and you then take on that trauma, and therefore you are attracting in experiences where you are experiencing, you know, harassment or, you know, events that have mimicked that. That stuff can be cleared out, and it's going to require new skills. So can you see, by doing this healing work, we are basically coming more into alignment with soul. We're bringing back our energy. We're setting new energetic boundaries. We are literally clearing out old frequencies that are not for us to carry anymore for ourselves, and clearing right the way back the ancestral lines. We are also shifting our frequency by doing this. You are literally evolving who you are on a multidimensional level. When we begin to also look at the beliefs that are connected into this energetics, every belief has a frequency. Beliefs are held on 4 different levels. So when we clear it at that level, it means that is a massive shift in a rise in frequency. So recognizing that you are going to attract like for like, you're going to attract other people, circles that hold similar belief systems to you. So if you want to shift stuff up, we need to do this deeper work. If you want to call in a partner who is family aligned, a guy that has certain attributes or experiences or values or whatever else that you have, you need to get really clear on who you are and what you want. but not just in your head, to make sure that energetically, if your ancestors never experienced love, you will find it very hard to hold that frequency yourself. The same for joy. This is also why certain lineages, we would work with something called Enoch magic, which is an angelic form of magic. They would invoke angels to hold the higher frequency of joy whilst they did this magic, because they knew that they would manifest whilst holding the frequency of joy. And that's going into stuff that's a bit advanced for people, but it is something to be aware of. When we're working with law of entrainment, which we talked about before, which is where the most dominant frequency we will entrain our energy field to, which means that if you work with somebody that has already actualized these things, you entrain to their field. That's what happens in my spaces, in my groups, and when people work with me one-to-one. That's how you get the acceleration. Because I don't go down in frequency, you will be entrained up to mine. So that is the role of the high priestess as well. So when we begin to understand that we can work with different consciousness, we can work with certain beings that will help us with this work as well. We know that this is an expansion in our consciousness, and the beings that we're working with are 5D and above. So meaning that they are entraining us to a higher frequency of consciousness just by being in our field, just by helping us. And there are many teams that we have working with us when we desire to start to step out into the role of soul. That means that we will start to be accelerated through the clearing process. We will start to have old relationships drop away because they are aligned to old timelines, old karma, old ways of being. When you start to say yes to the new way, start to attract in the new experiences, you start to accelerate through these things. And it means that we do get used to the fact that there will be people coming in and out of our experience, meaning the quicker we learn, the quicker we integrate, we see the red flags, we set a boundary, we maybe make a decision that, wait a minute, I'm just not available for this anymore. I choose differently. I clear my field, I update within the Akashic Records, and I get to move on, which means more expansion. So this is always about the expansion, because when we clear the dense stuff, we create more energetic expansion. We become open. When we are open, we are magnetic attractors. When we are closed off, still working through all the stories and the chaos in the victim stories, we are contracted because we're trying to keep ourselves safe. And it means that we can't receive the things we want. So the story in the head is that I'm not worthy of it. It's not possible for me. I can't see it around me. It's not here. But actually, in truth, that is always a lie. Always. Energetic soul highest perspective truth is that there was always infinite timelines available for you. You change one belief and clear one piece of trauma energetically out of your field, you shift timelines. That can be the difference between a completely different partner. So this is also bringing about the fact that for the awakened woman, she is going to get to a point where she is working on herself and accountably working on herself. This is a journey. This isn't like a one-stop shop. I've done like, a little bit here and that's it. No, this is an evolution. Every relationship brings something for you. Everything is going to bring you the opportunity to be your highest perspective, your highest self, your expanded self, your soul's self, or it will show you something else that needs to be alchemized. It will show you another part of you that maybe needed more love. It will show you a different way to operate. Everything brings the growth. Everything is always in motion. And it means that we're going to start to desire partners that desire similar, they hold similar values. They are accountable for their own wounds and their inner work. They're not expecting us to be their mothers. We're not in there playing those old dynamics out because we've recognized who we are. Therefore, we're not available to play into the old archetype roles. A big piece that I'm working with many women at the moment, and in particular those in professional roles, in businesses, is the self-sacrifice. They're juggling being mothers and having a lot of successful, businesses or opportunities. And this self-sacrifice, which is connected to the archetype of martyr, it's a collective energetic field that can be repatterned out of your field, so you're no longer plugged into it. And then you start to change things up. You start to put yourself first. It's about basically coming into overflow so that we are creating and sharing and living from that perspective, not depletion, which is literally the way we've been taught to operate. And that's where in business, we've been taught through the patriarchal way to deplete ourselves. We're masculine energy, do. burnout, hamster wheel, can't sit still, can't rest. It's the opposite. We're bringing the feminine back into balance. And that means multi-level healing, but it also means that we will require different partners. We will require different business partners. We will require different communities, connections, friendships, because as we evolve, we are not going to feel in alignment. And we're not here to fix. We're not here to rescue. We're not here to wait until someone else decides to make changes. In truth, it's about you evolving, and others will either assimilate to your frequency or they will drop away. And you have to make choices around relationships. And that might mean renegotiating relationships that aren't in alignment anymore. And this is going to be, this is how we grow, through our interrelationship with other people. So things are not going to stay static, because you have not stayed static. You have grown, you have done your inner work, and you are proactive, knowing that, every new level will require a new version of self, a new rebirthing, a new alchemy into expansion. And this is where we get to really play in the quantum, because we get to choose. If we are working in alignment with soul and we're working in alignment with quantum field, we literally, if we're willing to make the bold steps and be really accountable, we can align ourselves very, very quickly. We're going to see a lot of people start to step into this over the next 2 years, which is also going to contribute to the level of rapid shifts, and not just in consciousness, but in development of stuff, technology, ideas, systems, education, because literally people are going to be evolving and stepping into this ability to get very clear on who they are, keep aligned to their North Star, drop out the distractions. And the distractions are literally part of the 3D construct, and there's so much out there that is trying to pull you in, create an energetic connection there. This is really the period of getting to know yourself. And really, that's the gift that any relationship gives you, is to know yourself on deeper levels. When we drop away from the perceived dynamics of the pantomime, I call it, the drama triangle, the betrayal, the this, that, the other, when we free ourselves from that, we begin to really step into a much more deeper level of who we are, but we also get a deeper level and connection to ourselves, to our hearts. And we start to naturally, the more we hold our own essence, the more we will naturally start to connect in with our soul tribe, our soul family. Many people have kind of felt, the odd one out. I don't fit in on this earthly plane. What am I here for? What's my purpose? When you align to that stuff, you start to call in these people. They come to you because they can connect with your frequency. That can be partners. That can be, every experience out there. Everything is energy. So, regardless of where your situation is now, regardless of what you've happened in the past, none of it actually in truth defines your next chapter. Your choice to do the inner alchemy is what actually defines the next chapter for you. So if this is resonating with you, if you are curious about this, if you are ready to start deep diving, I've mentioned before, I have a number of tools. So what I would recommend doing is connect with me. My website is www.purelight1111.com. I'm going to be running these Ask Alleras every week, because I want to start to give people empowered, multidimensional perspectives and toolkits. So talking about what we were going through today, energetic divorces, you can book a session with me in a one-to-one, and I can do the energetic divorce for you. Recognizing I have something, I call it the diamond evolution. So it takes you through different levels, from the real deep dive, which I call it the wake up level, where we go so deep, it's creating completely new, strong foundations for you on multi-dimensional levels, meaning that we are clearing so much that your frequency really shifts, and you have a toolkit to be able to actually work through this stuff yourself. Therefore, you can then, when you're stuck with the blind spots, or you want the support with the business or the support with what's happening in your life, then you come and work with myself, and we can fast track. But I don't ever just want somebody codependent on me. I want you to have the toolkit and the understanding of what is happening for you so that you can start to be your own life architect, which is why I've created the Soul Architect series, which is my trademarked modality. And this literally takes people through what I call the diamond evolution, meaning that we get to what is called diamond brilliance, because a diamond is created through pressure and it's multifaceted. So everyone's journey is unique. Nobody is on this cookie cutter, which is why no strategy works exactly the same for somebody else, because they're all coming at it from different loads of baggage, different energetic set points, different skill sets, different educational sets, and also different levels of soul purpose. So the more that you're in tune with you, you're actually going to find it easier in business, easier in life. And that is the invitation. This really is moving into the frequency of, the era of frequency. When we begin to realize there is so much possibility for us, so much opportunity at this time, but we have a choice on what we focus on. We can focus on the collective timeline, which is literally the demolition. It's all the old structures falling down. It's all the old corruption and shadow and all the deception and everything that's been hidden is going to be shown. So we're going to see patterns of just more and more of the nonsense that's been going on. It has to come to the surface now, because energetically, there is so much light on this and higher vibration on this planet that there is no way to hide it anymore. So that means that we get this opportunity to create change, to build new structures, to start to be more conscious in our business and in our choices and how we live our lives. And that inner work, that inner deeper alchemy work is the fast track. But it is also the skill set that you will need for the rest of your life. And it is going to evolve. Literally, the toolkits that I have, I am constantly honing. I go through 40-day initiations. I'm literally actualized through some kind of life shift or actualization or whatever is happening. I embody a new gift, and then I can start to birth that through in my business, my client sessions, and in the healing abilities and the tools that I get gifted, because I get prepared for what is happening next. So the reason that I'm bringing this stuff more into mainstream now is because there is going to be a massive need for it over the next year or so, for people to start to understand their energetic and their soul nature, not as something that's woo-woo or religious connotations. It's not. It's literally about stripping away all of that old dogma. And even the archetypes are man-made consciousness fields, is beginning to understand how powerful we actually are at this time, to expand our consciousness and change really the realities that we have. And this will trickle into every area of your life, but also really importantly, it's breaking the cycles. It means the next generation are not going to come in and take on the same level of baggage. So we get to break the cycle in this incarnation, and we get to create a new set point for humanity. And that might sound very broad and out there for people, but literally this process has been going on since before, probably just about before 2012. And there's been many waves of this awakening, and people have been going in and doing their inner work, which has helped raise the frequency. And now it is mainstream's time. And then we get to have some level of balance. So super excited to be sharing more of this. Super excited to be bringing in more soul consciousness into relationships, and starting to help people heal the relationship with themselves, recognizing that you don't need to be as entangled to the stories and the pain and suffering. And there is another way to clear that. And often when you clear it, literally that whole charge goes and you're like, wow, I've been carrying all that and I didn't even know. So yeah, thank you so much for taking time out. I've loved sharing this with you, and recognizing that the energetic divorces are available as well. I do this within my Diamond Brilliance. I also, if I'm working with somebody that is, fertility work, we always do the energetic divorces, because that is literally a basic set point before you start to create a new chapter. So everything is connected to energetics and soul. So sending you lots of love. Thank you so much. And yes, if you catch this on YouTube, subscribe so you get the alert next time. Share this. If there's others that you think this could be useful for, share it. And I would love also if you send any of your questions over to askallera@mail.com, then I will be bringing through, and I will stream this through as I am now, multidimensional context into real world language, expanding. There is a solution for everything. There is an answer for everything. There is multiple timelines. You are never truly stuck or blocked. And if I leave you with that, that frees you from so much, regardless of where you are. Take care. Bye-bye.